considering the fact that 50% of our own country's population is youth.
Correct.
So how do you think how entrepreneurship and how incubations will play out in the favor of the country's economy?
When we look at the startup founders' age, we found that almost 31% of startups today in India, the founders are ranging, their age is ranging somewhere from 31 to 35.
Yes.
And other 26% of startup founders are between 26 to 30. So typically those 10 years of bracket from 25 to 35 is where majority of startup founders lie. And this is what we need as an entrepreneur, right? The characteristic for an entrepreneur is to be resilient, to be creative thinking, to work hard, to be persistent, to take calculated risk. So we as a country, I feel India as a country has a very huge potential of directing this youth towards entrepreneurial journey and thereby also creating support system to support them in their journey.
Hello everyone and welcome to Hustles and Hacks. This is the very first episode of our own podcast titled Student to CEO, the role of startup incubations in shaping tomorrow's entrepreneurs. I'm your host Unnati Kashyap, and with me today I have Mr. Sudani, who is the CEO of PIERC, which is Parul Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Research Cell. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Unnati.
How are you feeling today?
I am feeling fine and good.
So, what were the procedure when you first thought of this podcast? What were your very first thoughts for the podcast?
Yeah, honestly, when looking at the title, what I realized is that we are trying to address the students and inform them about what is the role of incubation centers in shaping their own startup journey and how startup has evolved in past 5-7 years in India and how is Indian global ecosystem playing a pivotal role in startup world.
Yes. So since today we are discussing about startup incubations, this term might be very much new for everyone who might be viewing this podcast. So what I would like is for you to introduce this term to the very own audience.
Yeah. So firstly, incubator is very much non-term in the medical science. You might have heard somebody that when a premature baby is born, they are kept into incubators. And what does it mean is they are kept into incubators until a period when the doctors feel that the babies are not in a position to fight the external environment. And the moment they feel that the baby has regained the strength to fight the external environment, they are taken out to the incubators.
Okay.
Now, just chronologically replacing those babies with startup ideas. You can understand what incubation centers would do in startup space. So incubation centers basically are trying to provide the favorable atmosphere and environment to the startup at an early stage, particularly the stage where there is a very high mortality rate of startup ideas and startup in the early stage of their journey, and provide them all the support required for them to grow to a mature stage. And then they are graduated from the incubation centers wherein the other key ecosystem players will then play a pivotal role in their journey. So our role is more of like to support and handhold the startup ideas, the startup founders, to nurture them to a stage when they're ready to fight the external environment and face the external situations.
Okay, so as India, as we all know, is the third largest ecosystem of entrepreneurship in the world.
Correct.
So how do you view the current scenario of startup incubations in India, and how have you played a role in it till now?
Okay, now if you see the India, we are very much proud that we are third largest startup ecosystem in the world with over 114 unicorns in the country. And today when we are talking, I think we have around 132,000 startups in the country being registered. You see the exponential growth that we have seen in past 7-8 years. It started with the Startup India initiative by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji in 2016.
Yes.
And from there, we typically had around 400 startups in 2016. And today we have 132,000, and you see the exponential growth.
Yes.
It's very visible that incubation centers have played a very pivotal role in growing these startup numbers. We took 6 years to get 50,000 startups in the country from 2016 to 2021. And in next 2 years, we crossed another 61,000 startups. So it itself says that incubators have played pivotal role in making people aware about what are incubators and making youngsters aware about this vertical of their career, that startup entrepreneurship is also a career option.
Yes.
And we have observed the mind shift in the youngsters as well. Earlier, if you see when students used to take admission in the institution or colleges, they always look at the placement scenario of where will he or she being placed after they graduate from here. But now I'm seeing that the mindset is also changing, that People are choosing universities and institutions depending on what kind of support system is available for startup in their particular institutions now. So I feel that this has played a pivotal role as an incubation center in the country.
So, yes, as you discussed, now people's views are changing about taking entrepreneurship as a career. So, I have this data with me that there have been exponential growth from 471 startups in 2016 to a growth of 72,993 in 2022.
Yeah.
So, how has this rapid expansion reshaped the dynamics of Indian startup system?
So, if you look at this history, as you said, it all started with a vision of government of India.
Yes.
We are a country where we have largest number of youth population, and if we want to utilize the potential of the youth, we need to give direction to those youth, right? And startup was a very nascent word in 2016, and government also thought about initiatives where how can we build infrastructure to support early stage innovations and early stage startup ideas. The very first thing they did where government came forward, they asked academic institutions to partner with them and set up an incubation centers. And slowly and gradually, if you see from 2016, I think DST was the first who came into place, and they started this TBI scheme, and Technology Business Incubator being set up across the country. Then Niti Aayog came forward with Parul Innovation Mission. Then after looking at this space and looking at the exponential growth of the startup, as you say, there were many state government also came into effect, and a lot of state government now today when we are speaking, I think out of 36 states and union territories in the country, almost 31 of them have their own startup policies, state policies.
Yes.
And out of this 31, 27 policies came into effect after 2016 that Startup India campaign was being launched at different phases of time. So I see that state government is also a key role to play in supporting startup at different stages. Similarly, the local ecosystem of the state and the country also plays a pivotal role. So looking at the exponential growth, now I'm seeing that a lot of private players are also getting involved and at the different stages of startup journey.
Yes.
And they are also focusing on how we can come forward and have a win-win situation of both of them.
So, as you said that you have seen cases where people have built their business from the very start.
Yeah.
So, this might seem a very personal question, but would you please tell us about that one story or that one memory that you have that you have seen a business grow up from a seed to a big tree?
See, normally when you talk about startup ideas and businesses, a lot of students, when I take the session and I interact with them, whenever you talk about startup, the first thing that comes in their mind is like it should have invention involved in it. It should have some high-fi research. It should have some hyper technology involved in it. But to me, what I feel is in India, particularly, we have a lot of problems. There are youngsters who can solve the problems. And if you have picked one of the simple problems and thought about scalable solutions, that is scalable within the country itself, it's a startup for us. I'll not go very technologically, I'll not give an example of technical sound startup, but a very simple startup from your institutions, we are from arts.
Yes.
We have a first year startup. 6 months back, a student called Devashish registered a startup with us.
Yes.
And he's running an ecomcy.
Yes.
6 months back, he just came with an idea. And the idea was very simple. Sir, there are many faculty members enrolling with PU or many students who are enrolling with PU with different courses. Their parents are facing difficulty in finding accommodations outside the campus.
Yes.
Within the campus, we do have a very structured process of hostels and all. But outside the campus, there is a brokerage involved and you need to go and hustle around and then find out some places. He said, why can't I be OYO for student hostels and other faculty members who are coming outside of Vadodara and shifting here? And I was very surprised to his idea initially because there was no tech involved as such. The business model he came up with is very innovative in the sense. So it did not to be necessary that your innovation should always be in a product or a process. Even if you have innovation in a business model, what Uber did, the same thing.
Yes.
Even before Uber came into existence, there was taxi service being provided. But the model was innovative. Uber did not invent any vehicles. Neither they invented any kind of other services, but they just made a technological platform wherein they can integrate this and have a business model which is viable for everybody. In the same way, Ecomzy 6 months before, the revenue was zero. It was an idea stage startup.
Yes.
Today, it's a registered company. And I'm very proud to share a first year student from Faculty of Arts has crossed a revenue of more than 12 lakhs per 2 months. So typically 6 lakhs in a month of revenue. If you scale up it for a year, he has crossed 70 lakhs of revenue per year by now. And his father himself has invested into his company.
Yes.
So that's the one case story which you were talking. And there are other stories as well. If I start telling you, it will take long interaction. But one of those I would like to share is we have one startup called Dr. Cardio.
Yes.
Which is again a pocket service ECG machine devices. So he has developed a 12-channel proper ECG machine which can be very handy and can be carried to the patient's house and can do ECG report for the patients there itself in the house. And the report can be sent to the mobile phone via Bluetooth devices, and then this PDF file can be shared to the doctors in the city and the urban areas. So he has sold this product to more than 7 countries globally, worldwide, and crossed revenue of more than 2 crores by now. So there are many such stories that has taken shape from our center. But yeah, looking at the time, I would not like to carry much of the stories in this particular talk.
Well, that was an interesting story, because yes, even I remember hearing Devashish's idea of a startup, and we were all surprised that he has this idea and that your cell helped him to grow up so much.
Very simple idea. Very simple.
Yes, and
but the way he executed was excellent.
Very much. So now that makes me want to know that what is the exact support system at Parul University? Like as a startup incubator, how do you support students and how do you bring out the best in them?
Okay. So before I take this question, I would like to share you the history of how the center has taken shape over a period. Startup India campaign launched in the country in 2016,
yes.
Right? And if you look at the history of our incubation center, we started with Entrepreneurship Development Cell in 2013.
Yes.
And at that time, we were Parul Group of Institutes.
Okay.
And our founder president, Dr. Jayesh Patel, has this idea at the point of time that there should be a space where any student of Parul Institute should go and discuss having an innovative business idea, and there should be somebody to listen to them and somebody to mentor them. So that was an idea with which it started in 2013. And then in 2015, we officially registered our Section 8 company, which is not for profit.
Okay.
And it is Parul Innovation and Entrepreneurship Research Center, which is our incubation center. And from that point, we started offering the incubation programs. And by 2017, the state government launched its own scheme of supporting startup and funding them. So we were one of those beneficiaries in the state who got the funding to support our startup at an idea stage. So even before a student registers the company, they will get funding on an idea.
Okay.
And in 2019, there was a case where management decided that looking at the exponential number of students enrolled in the university, we hired around 10 more people in the center full-time, wherein we focused heavily on supporting them at different stages. And in 2020, the state government has given us the recognition of nodal institution,
yes.
which means our startup can then seek funding of from state government up to 40 lakh rupees per startup. And then in 2021, we have established the Fab Lab facility, the infrastructure facility, and then we got this grant of Startup India Seed Fund Scheme, wherein our startup can then avail 50 lakh rupees grant from our center itself. So now, this period, if you see, that we started supporting startups from 2013 and today is 2024, 11 years of our existence, we came up with 2 dedicated programs. One is incubation and other is growth ped. Incubation program basically supports startup from a stage at an initial stage of idea to a final product which is launched in the market. And growth ped is focusing heavily on a journey from product stage to a growth stage, wherein the startup is looking for raising the private funds and they're looking for raising the penetrating the market at different stages. But product should be there, a service should be there, established, launched in the market in case of the program. Now, talking about the exit support system, we provide funding to the startups, be it an idea stage, product stage, MVP stage, or a growth stage. We have all this support system available. We provide mentorship to them. We have our onboarded mentors with us, be it internal mentors from the university or external mentors from the ecosystem that we have across the country. Then we provide them co-working space. We give access to the laboratory network that we have with us. We provide them access to the investors. We are also now focusing on launching our own angel investment network.
Okay.
So we also provide them access to those things. And every year we also organize more than 100 events where they get platform to showcase their idea and the startup to interact with several industry members and investors. So this is how we support them in their journey.
Okay, so I grasped you mentioning Fab Lab.
Yeah.
So could you please tell us how Fab Lab works?
So Fab Lab basically is a concept of MIT Boston. It started from there, USA, and today the Fab Lab has grown to a network of globally 1,200 Fab Lab networks in the globe, and we have established the fifth Fab Lab of Gujarat in the institutions. Fab Lab basically is an area where any idea can take a shape, a physical shape.
Okay.
For example, if you are thinking of developing an innovative product, but the product is not available in market, right? And you want to build the first version of it. So Fab Lab is a place where a lot of equipments are being set up, and that equipments will help you to prepare first version of the product so that you can test it, you can do trials on that product, and then you can see whether the idea is working or not. So it consists of 3D printers, 3D scanners, CNC milling machine,
Okay.
laser cutter, laser engraving machine, vacuum forming machine, and many other stuff. So we have dedicated staff in the Fab Lab who are well trained to operate all those equipments, and they can help the innovators to build the first version of the product.
Okay, so this was about actually building a business, right?
Yeah.
And incubations obviously help in growing the businesses. But looking ahead, what challenges do you anticipate for startups? Because as far as I have checked the data, there have been as many as 30 to 40% of startups that never get their own funding back in the
Investors.
business. Yes, they don't get their own investment back. So how do you consider this as a challenge?
Yeah, so if you see why do investors not get the money back is because they're investing into startups. Oh, no doubt that when they were investing, they felt that the startup has a real good market ahead. But from a startup's perspective, what I feel is today, if you check the data, more than 70% of startups who are registered, they fail in their first 2 years of the operations.
Yes.
They close their companies. And now here is the question. I mean, when I say this statement to the students who are aspiring to be an entrepreneur, they ask me, then why are you asking us to be an entrepreneur? I say, it's not about me asking you to be an entrepreneur. It's about you to analyze your own skill set, whether you are there to be an entrepreneur or not.
Okay.
Now, when we say this startup gets failed, but I have seen that out of those founders who are failing, those 70%, it's not they are running away from the startup world. They have bounced back with another ideas, with another startups, and coming up forward. So when I say this, we say that startup ideas get failed and not the founders.
Okay.
And Swiggy is an example of the same. Swiggy founders
Yes.
is a startup of the founders by the second time they have tried it, right? It was the first startup was failed rigorously. So when we see these things, there was research being done. Why this majority of startups are being failed? And the reasons were being analyzed. The top reason which came out of this research was almost 40% of those startups who failed. They failed because they are building something which nobody wants.
Okay.
What does it mean is they are not understanding the target audience very well. They are understanding them from their own lenses. They are not understanding the audience from audience's lenses, like the target market. So my point in this statement is the same, that when startup founders are starting a startup or a startup venture, they're building a product, they need to understand very well that for whom they are building and whether what they're building for the people, whether it is really required or not. Many a times the founders stay in their own sweet world. They try to complex the things,
Yes.
but it is not required at all in that point of time. So understanding business model, and second, which I have observed, is they are following a startup career or entrepreneurial career because somebody else is following it. Right now you are seeing the Shark Tank India program and other
Yes.
stuff. People look startup world as a glamour world.
Yes.
It's not about glamour. When I ask somebody, that many of the students come to me, sir, I want to do a startup. When I ask them, why do you want to do a startup? Almost 70% of those answers which I get are like this. Sir, I don't want to do 9 to 5 jobs, or I cannot work under anybody else, or I want to be my own boss, or I want to take leaves on my own. I want to enjoy my own time. So these are the questions, these are the answers which this is the meat for the startup founder.
Yes.
In fact, when you're running a startup, you need to work 18 hours a day. You need to work on Sundays. All your customers are your boss.
Yes.
In job world, you will at least have one boss. In startup world, you will have many bosses. So if you are ready to work hard, if you have the passion for a particular field, there are students who come to me saying that, sir, I want to contribute in an educational sector or healthcare sector. So if there's a passion behind it, if you want to change something, if you want to make a difference, and if you're ready for hard work, then the startup world is for you. It's not for everybody else.
Okay, that might be a very motivational point for all the viewers. And so my last but not the least question is that what is your vision towards establishing startup accelerator centers across Gujarat in the form of startup studios, which you mentioned are in Vadodara, in Ahmedabad, in Rajkot and Surat?
So after 2020, when we have chosen that we will now aggressively work in this space, we had a discussion, and our president, Dr. Devanshu Patel, has this vision that because from day one we were very clear that if we are building an incubation center, we are building accelerators. This should not be limited to our student and our alumni.
Yes.
It should be open for everybody. And so I think we are the center where anybody in the country can approach us and we can support them irrespective of whether they are Parul University student or alumni or even school dropout or college dropout.
Yes.
The only thing we require is the passion within themselves who feels that they want to build a startup. Focusing on accelerator centers, we have realized in past 5 years of our experience that we need to focus and support startup beyond product stage or beyond product launch. And when we say accelerators, we mean that after a startup has an early market traction, when they are in a growth stage, they are looking for two things. One is where can they expand the market, and second is how can they get private investment to expand this, because most of the government funding is there between idea to a product stage. Very few funding comes after growth stage, but then startup has to figure out his own ways to sustainable, right?
Yes.
So private investment is the only way that they can expand their horizons and operations in different cities. So then we realized as a team that if we are in Vadodara, which is tier 2 cities in Gujarat, we let us focus on other 3 major cities, Ahmedabad, Surat and Rajkot, and establish our own startup studio center there. And these studios specifically focused on supporting startup at a growth stage. And these studios will be focused on helping startups with fundraising for the startups. And each city of this state has their own advantages of local ecosystem players.
Yes.
So Surat has a lot of investors there. Rajkot has a lot of industry members there, stalwarts there, investors there. Vadodara and Ahmedabad has a strong hold of startups and all. So our startups get a collective benefit of all these 4 cities that the strengths are.
Yes.
That's what our vision is. And then slowly, gradually, we're also focusing on building our own angel fund and our own angel investors and angel group of people who are investing into startups.
So now that we see that there are so many developments that you yourself have been mentioning, and considering the fact that 50% of our own country's population is youth.
Correct.
So how do you see the future? Like people would predict that 10 years back that there will be hydro cars, there will be electric cars. So how do you think how entrepreneurship and how incubations will play out in the favor of the country's economy?
Yeah, so as you said that we are the country with 50% population below 25 years of age, that is very true. If I take the median age of the country, it is 28
Yes.
somewhere around today. And when we look at the startup founders' age, we found that almost 31% of startups today in India, the founders their age is ranging somewhere from 31 to 35.
Yes.
And other 26% of startup founders are between 26 to 30. So typically those 10 years of bracket from 25 to 35 is where majority of startup founders lie. And this is what we need as an entrepreneur, right? The characteristic for an entrepreneur is to be resilient, to be
Yes.
creative thinking, to work hard, to be persistent, to take calculated risk. So we as a country, I feel India as a country has a very huge potential of directing this youth towards entrepreneurial journey and thereby also creating support system to support them in their journey, right? In future, I see with a lot of initiatives which being taken, I would like to appreciate the initiative of EICT and Ministry of Education and Innovation Cell. In India, we have more than 50,000 institutions, higher education institutions.
Yes.
And they are now setting up the innovation ecosystem in all of these institutions. And we are one of those institutions where we have started this process very early. And now EICT is not even giving approval to any institutions without setting up innovation council in their own institution. So, and also I would like to appreciate the efforts of Niti Aayog. They have this Atal Innovation Mission, and you
Yes.
might know that the schools are taken up now with Atal Tinkering Labs in the schools of India. With NEP also, if you see, the heavy focus is given on curiosity, brainstorming, design thinking, creativity.
Yes.
So India is now focusing on how these youth, when they turn out to be of this age group of 31 to 35 or 28 to 35, these qualities of startup founders should be instilled within themselves. So that, as you said, when they come to this age group, they also think that they do have characteristic of being an entrepreneur, and then
Yes.
thereby they seek some problem and then they start building venture over it.
And any final words or any words of motivation that you would like to someone who is still wondering if they should or should not take that one idea out of their head and convert it into a reality?
One, I would like to say that whenever you think of building a startup, ask yourself, why do you want to start a startup?
Yes.
Why do you want to pursue an entrepreneurship and an entrepreneurial journey? If you are choosing those journey with the wrong reasons, do not do that. If you are choosing the entrepreneurship journey just because somebody else looking good on social media or television screen, you are motivated, don't do that. But on the other hand, if you feel that you have something to contribute, if you feel that you have your own passion, you have your own vision for some particular sector, go for it. I think that is the right reason for starting a startup journey. I'm sure you will make a lot of money for yourself and for your country, but if you're starting it for the right reasons. And finally, I would like to say that whenever normally there are a lot of incidences where people say, "Sir, where do I get startup idea from? I want to start a startup, but how do I get startup idea?" See, India is a country which has millions of opportunities for starting a startup.
Of course.
You count the drop of water in the ocean, that much opportunities are there with us to start a startup. How? So if you look at the startup of Redbus, how did it started? The founder faced a challenge. He could not go to his hometown during Diwali vacation, and that's how he was. He found that, okay, if I could not go, there should be one seat empty available from hundreds of operators in Bangalore city, but I could not go because I don't have any place where I could find that one empty seat.
Yes.
That's where he got an idea. If he chose to complain the system, he would have complained, right? So on the other hand, what he chose? He chose to be on the other side of the complaining mode. He chose that how can I contribute situation? How can I help these people like me facing the same challenges? So to all the youngsters, I would like to say that whenever you hear any problem, whenever you hear any complaint, whenever you see any problem in society, always trigger your mind that is there an opportunity for me to create solution for this? The moment you trigger your mind on that side, you will see whether that problem is really big or not. If it is big, go for it. You will get a startup idea from there.
Sure.
And for a university like us, I think at this scale, all of us as a team at the incubation center, we feel that for us, number of graduates we produce does not matter a lot. What matters is how many number of problem solvers we create.
Yes.
And send back to society so that they source the problem and become problem solvers at the end of the day. So all of us should be very proud saying that we are not only a country of billion mouths to feed, but also a country of billion minds to innovate.
Here, very well said. Just like Sir said, it's not just about the people graduating, it's about problem solvers or the thinkers that we make it out of the campus. And yes, I guess that is the current scenario of the startup ecosystem in India. So this was Mr. Jay Sudani with me on our very first episode of Hustles and Hacks. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.